So still plenty of questions coming. I hope that's a good sign that you're interested in Dhamma and things are coming up in your meditation in a good way. Could also be a bad sign, could be a sign I'm not teaching very well. So let's see. Hi Ajahn. Hi. People tell me that the practice or path should be joyful. However, you've also acknowledged that most people learn on the path through the dukkha way. So should the practice be fun or dukkha, or both? Good question, yeah. You have to turn the dukkha into the path, use it as a starting point for the path. What did the Buddha say? He said, people have dukkha and they realize they've got dukkha in some way. They're ill, they have mental suffering, they recognize some of the suffering of life, everything is impermanent, we get older every day. They have questions, where is real happiness? But that questioning and searching brings them to the Dhamma. And if they have good fortune, they may meet the Buddha or a noble one, or hear the good Dhamma, or read the good Dhamma. And then faith arises, saddha. Faith is the energy that leads to you want to practice. So that comes from recognizing dukkha as dukkha. And then you want to practice, so you get faith arise. So for many people, when they begin practice, it does come through pain or difficulty. But that's not the end of the story. Then you start looking and you get the Buddhist teachings and you start practicing, and faith arises and faith can increase until it becomes a powerful quality in your mind. Strong quality, even becomes what we call Arya Samapati or Arya Sampat, meaning your inner wealth that you take with you from life to life. That's what you want to aim for, is to have enough faith, or get to the point where your faith is something very strong inside you. Whatever else is happening, however much dukkha you face, it's not going to shake your faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and it's not going to stop you practicing. So when you die, if you haven't reached Nibbana, your faith will go into your next life with you. Why do people stop practicing? Well, their faith is not yet clear. They're not sure about dukkha. Is life dukkha, like you say? Maybe they think, maybe life is not dukkha. I don't need Dhamma, I don't need Buddha. I can practice. I can live without the practice. I don't need Buddhism. People think like that, so they sometimes waver or they go in another direction. But if you practice and you're sure that what you've done is good, you see some of your defilements dropping away. You're less greedy, less angry, less worried, less fearful, more peaceful, more content, more happy. Then your faith is based on experience. It's not just believing, it's seeing or knowing for yourself. And the more you practice, you may still encounter dukkha along the way. But once you understand about practice, you turn dukkha into wisdom, the Four Noble Truths. So instead of just going, my dukkha, life is terrible, I'm feeling miserable, you go, dukkha, where's the cause of this dukkha? So Ajahn Chah is always very spot on in his teachings. So he said, where you notice dukkha, there must be some attachment. You're attaching to something, upadana. Where does attachment come from? Craving, tanha. So if you're feeling miserable, there's a cause for this. It's not like It's not random. You don't just feel miserable just by chance. It's not some other force making you miserable. Someone up there saying you're going to be miserable today. It's not even destiny. It's not like, oh, I was born to be miserable. All these things are what people often think or say. But dukkha comes from a cause. Tanha, upadana, bhava, jati, birth. So you have to go back to the cause and then see how you can abandon the cause. So how do you abandon the cause? You become aware, mindful. Then you start to see the cause at work. You see tanha arising when you're mindful. Aha, got ya. Tanha. And then you have to start practicing restraining the tanha, use precepts and use mindfulness. And then you use some wisdom to see, oh, this tanha, well, the object of the tanha is impermanent, not self. The tanha itself is impermanent, not self. Until your mind really sees that, then it lets go of tanha. No need for tanha anymore. No need for tanha, so then no need for attachment, upadana, becoming, birth, freedom from suffering. This is why when you meditate, when you put effort into your meditation, some mindfulness comes up, you feel more peaceful because you're mindful. It's because you're dropping the tanha, if only temporarily. So you can even be peaceful, you can still have pain in your leg, but now you don't worry about it. Oh, pain in the leg, I know that. When the tanha, you drop the tanha, you can be with a painful feeling, but you don't suffer with it, do you? You just know it. Oh, painful feeling, it's like that. Somebody's rude to you, or someone who used to be annoying, once the tanha drops away, it's like, oh, yep, they're being rude to me. Okay, that's the way it is. All the things that normally throw up tanha in your mind no longer throw up tanha. They're still there, but now when your mind is mindful and your wisdom is working, you're seeing these things are impermanent, they're not self, and then you can start letting go. So wherever there's suffering, it's because there's clinging. If you can see that, and you start letting go, then you don't suffer. The suffering is something you experience on different levels. So like, in the big picture, life is suffering. It has to be, because the world is suffering. Nobody is born and just has pleasure all day long, all night long, every day, all day, whole of their life. Anyone who says that is not correct. They're lying or they're deluded. Everyone has pain. Just waking up in the morning, half the people, they wake up in the morning and, oh, first second is, oh, there's the pain of that bruise or that injury, there's the pain of aging, there's the pain of feeling tiredness, maybe you slept too long in one position, so you wake up, Urgh. Maybe last night you drank too much, you wake up with a headache, hangover. Not here, somewhere else. It's a new year. All kinds of pain from first thing in the morning, isn't it? We have these sayings, we say, you got up on the wrong side of the bed. Basically that's saying life is dukkha, same as the Buddha. The Buddha didn't say, you get up on the wrong side of the bed, he said life is dukkha, but it's the same thing. So we struggle to get rid of the dukkha, but sometimes we do it in the right way. We establish mindfulness and contemplate where is the craving, where is the attachment, let it go. Sometimes we do it in the wrong way. So, I used to live with people who would wake up with a hangover and they say, oh, I got a hangover, I better have another drink. It just gets worse, doesn't it? Some people go the wrong way to get rid of their dukkha. They don't practice the path and develop mindfulness, insight, let it go. They just make it worse and worse. or you're angry with someone, you don't say, oh, I better restrain this, bring up the metta, let the anger go. They go, I'm angry, I'll be happy when I get at them. So their way of getting rid of anger is go and have an argument. It only gets worse. So human beings often get it wrong. They don't use dukkha as a starting point for the practice. They use dukkha to go off and make more dukkha. So it gets worse. It's like going down a hole or a whirlpool. So this is something you have to investigate, isn't it? You use dukkha to gain panya, wisdom. Because wisdom is what helps you to abandon dukkha. I often talk about the monk called Lumo Good. Lumo means Venerable Father, good in Thai is Di, Lumo Good. He just turned everything into something good. So, dukkha, good. You can learn from this, good. Somebody is rude to you, good. Now I know what it's like when they're rude to me. I can let go of that kind of craving, that kind of reaction. You had to go out on a dana, go and bless a house. I was waiting for the car to arrive. No car arrived. Walking meditation up and down for several hours. No car, no one arrived. Oh, maybe I won't get any food today. Dukkha. Oh, good, now I can contemplate this, what it's like when you don't have any prospect of getting food for the day. Okay, now I know what this is like. Good. Finally they turned up very late. Sorry, Lumo, our car broke down. Now we can go. Okay, good, you're here, good. Gets in the car, drives off, and they break down again halfway so he has to walk meditation back and forth while the guy's fixing the car. So he said, oh, good, now I can see the impermanence. Thought I wouldn't get to eat, and then I got in the car, thought I would get to eat, and now I'm not going to get to eat again. Oh, good. Walking up and down, meditating, and the guy fixes the car. Oh, good, now we can go. Drives off, gets to the house. It's already like 11:30, 11:45, haven't got much time left. The people say, Lumo, oh, you've got to eat, it's almost midday, what do we do? We're going to have a house blessing. He said, well, we'll have to do the blessing after the meal. Good. Get to eat first. Good. So they serve the food, and then he blesses the house after the meal. Fine, just the same, doesn't really matter, does it? Then he goes home again. So he just turned everything into a reflection. Good. And he's just adjusting to the situation. Good things happen, bad things happen, but it's all good because it's a chance to contemplate and learn the Dhamma. And Chah was the same, wasn't he? He said, practicing meditation, particularly vipassana, where you're developing mindfulness, insight into suffering, how it arises, how it ceases, gaining wisdom. He says it's like standing at the bottom of a mango tree and your friend is up there dropping mangoes down. You've got a basket, you just catch the mangoes in your basket. All you have to do is catch mangoes and you can end up with a basket full of mangoes. You don't even have to go up the tree, your friend is up there. This is someone who's practicing vipassana. They're just observing things arise, pass away. Good things, bad things, dukkha, sukha, happiness, suffering. It's all just arises and ceases, and it's not self. Because things that arise and cease are not self. That's vipassana, isn't it? He said, oh, it's just catching mangoes. Easy. All good. Next question. Dear Ajahn, can there be thoughts come into the mind during samadhi? Thank you for your teachings and Dhamma talk this morning. It made a big relief for me. So can there be thoughts coming to the mind during samadhi? It depends what level or depth of samadhi. So the Buddha didn't go into a lot of detail about kinds of samadhi. He'd just say the main thing is, when the mind is one-pointed, we say, has one object, still, calm, with this one object, then there'll be vitakka, which is like initial thought, directing your thought to an object, such as the breath. At one point where where's the breath, you can feel it, and you're directing your mind there. And then vichara means you're sustaining your attention there. You keep with the breath, so you really know it because you stay with it. If you're not with something, you're not paying attention, you can't really know it. So you direct your mind to the breath and you stay there. Vitakka, vichara. When you're doing that, you start to relax, it gets interesting, gets enjoyable, piti arises. Talked a bit about that yesterday. The other factor is sukha, contentment. You're happy to be doing this. You're not thinking, I would rather be going off and doing something else. You're not looking for anything else now because your mind is happy to be with the breath. It's interested, it's got energy, it's not bored, not sleepy, happy to be with the breath. So it is enjoyable. It's not like working to overcome dukkha, there's no enjoyment. There is, but you're still having to be ready to look at dukkha. So there's vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata, is one-pointedness. Your mind merges or stays right with this one object until the object and the mind are together. That's why we call it stillness, firmness of mind, because it's not going to anything else now. Normally our mind is jumping around, monkey mind, but now it's just one-pointed on an object. So these are the 5 factors of samadhi, which the Buddha talks about, describes. And there's still depths of samadhi. So we have first, second, third, fourth jhana, rupa jhana, we have arupa jhanas, another 4. But most of the teachers talk also from experience, and so the commentaries and what teachers say, they go into a little bit more about the preliminaries before reaching one-pointedness. So we talk about khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, where all these 5 factors come together, but briefly. Could even just be 5 minutes. So many people, maybe some of you are already on this retreat, and many practitioners, sometimes they become peaceful. The mind seems to come together, all the energy comes together, they're not distracted, not bored, not sleepy, not dull, just present with the object of mind. Samadhi arises, but it may be quite brief. Might have this sense of the mind going in, staying with its object, not interested in the rest of the world for a while, happy, and then comes back again, starts thinking again, feeling the body again. Khanika samadhi, momentary concentration. And then you get a bit deeper into it, maybe you're better at paying attention, you're trying harder, you're getting more skillful at letting go of things. You might experience upacara samadhi, which is called access concentration or neighborhood concentration, because you're in the neighborhood of one-pointedness jhana, but you're not quite there. You're on the threshold, on the outside of it. But it's still very good samadhi, and this might last an hour or 2, or when you practice for many hours, you might be having it, upacara samadhi, for a while, and then it disappears and comes back. In upacara samadhi, the hindrances, all the distractions have gone, your mind is peaceful, happy. Sometimes you get thoughts arise, you can still have a thought, but it doesn't bother you. A thought is a thought. Oh, there's a thought, but it doesn't bother you. It's like a bird flying through the sky. Bird flying through the sky, thought going through my mind. You see it, you know it, but it doesn't bother you. You don't grasp hold of it and get caught up in it. Feelings in the body, the same. So if you reach upacara samadhi, your mind is calm, peaceful, bright, happy. You might have pain in your legs, dukkha, but you can see the dukkha as dukkha. Oh, it's just a pain in the leg. That's all. You don't suffer with it in the sense you don't think a lot about it, worry about it. It's just, oh, there's that pain. Or you might remember something that was painful. Oh, that terrible experience I had last retreat, maybe. Comes up. But now you're peaceful, you can see that memory come up, you can contemplate it, it's impermanent, it's not self, you let it go. So you can still have thoughts arise in Upacara Samadhi, you can still have images come up. So some people get images or nimittas, see things. But because you're peaceful, it doesn't really bother you. Subtly it can still trick you, and people do get lost in nimittas. You have to be a bit careful, but you can still have these movements and experiences in the mind. But if you keep practicing, maybe your one-pointedness will reach a point where your mind is totally absorbed in the object, and there's no thoughts, no images, no awareness of the body. It's now completely still. And maybe for a long time, maybe for hours. Completely gone, but completely bright, happy. It's not dull, it's not hypnotized. It's just knowing itself inside. Let go of the body, let go of the world. What we call appana samadhi, which can be any of the jhanas. Because sometimes it's not a certain thing. You might go into a deep jhana, first jhana or fourth jhana. You can't always be sure. So, Khanika Samadhi, Upacara Samadhi, Appana Samadhi, these are kind of the way teachers tend to talk about Samadhi. And for most meditators, it's a bit hit and miss. One day you have a good meditation, peaceful, another day you don't, another day you can't do it. And that's a lot of people's frustration, is because they're trying to get Samadhi and they can get it and then they can't get it, fed up, annoyed. Nevertheless, this is how it progresses, and you may learn how to bring your mind to one-pointedness quicker and better as you go along. It's a skill. So in Upacara Samadhi you can still have a thought. In Appana Samadhi or jhana you can't. Oh. I'll talk in Thai for a little while and then talk in English. Namaskaran Luangพ่อ ลูกสาวดูแลพ่อที่บวชเป็นพระป่วยติดเตียงอาบน้ำเช็ดตัวให้เราจะบาปหรือเปล่าก็ปกติตามวินัยผู้หญิงไม่ควรจะจับพระรู้ว่าเป็นพ่อก็เลยคงจะไม่ได้มีอะไรเกิดขึ้นแต่ว่ามันดูไม่งามถ้าจะหาผู้ชายมาทำแทนจะเป็นพระดีที่สุดเป็นพระเป็นสามเณรถ้าไม่มีก็ให้เป็นโยมผู้ชายจะดีกว่าเพราะผู้หญิงดูแลพระถึงจะเป็นคุณพ่อมันดูไม่ดีดูไม่สวยพยายามหลีกเลี่ยงสองแล้วคุณพ่อที่บวชเป็นพระผิดศีลหรือเปล่าไม่มีคนดูแลที่เป็นผู้ชายก็ที่ว่าเป็นญาติกันพ่อกับลูกแต่ปัญหาคือเพศตรงข้ามก็เป็นที่เกิดของกามราคะได้ง่ายก็เลยวินัยก็ไม่ให้ก็เลยถือว่าเป็นอาบัติแต่ว่าทุกคนคงเข้าใจเป็นลูกสาวดูแลพ่อเข้าใจแต่ถ้าเราพยายามหาวิธีอื่นที่จะดูแลคุณพ่อน่าจะดีกว่าหาผู้ชายสักคนหนึ่งหรือย้ายพ่อไปในวัดใหญ่ที่มีพระดูแลเขาได้เราต้องหาวิธีแก้ไขปัญหา 3. พระ สาวปีนเสาขึ้นใช่ไหม
มีพระองค์นึงเขาประท้วงรัฐบาลอะไรทุกอย่างเนี่ยเขาก็จะปีน
ประท้วงโอเคพระบินเสาที่เมืองไทยผิดศีลหรือเปล่าคงจะผิดและสำนักสงฆ์คณะสงฆ์จะต้องจับศึกไหมครับเหตุเกิดที่เมืองไทยครับก็คงไม่ต้องศึกแต่ให้จับอบรมดีกว่าอบรมให้เข้าใจพระไม่ควรจะบินเสาก็จบเข้าใจบางทีปัญหาบ้านเมืองการเมืองพระก็รู้สึกรับผิดชอบอยากจะเมตตาโยมอยากจะช่วยแก้ปัญหาบ้านเมืองแต่ที่จริงมันผิดหลักผิดหน้าที่พระก็คือพาญาติโยมออกจากทุกข์โดยการเจริญมรรคศีลสมาธิปัญญาให้ปฏิบัติตรงนี้ดีกว่าแล้วก็เจริญศีลสมาธิปัญญาแล้วก็ค่อยๆอธิบายเทศสอนอบรมรักษาความสำรวมจะดีกว่าพระกับการเมืองไม่ควรจะยุ่งกันถ้าอยากจะเล่นการเมืองก็ไปเป็นฆราวาสก็ได้ไปเล่นเข้าพรรคการเมืองไปเล่นการเมืองก็ได้แต่ว่าพระสอนอีกวิธีหนึ่งอีกแนวหนึ่งสอนให้คนซื่อสัตย์สุจริตสอนให้คนเมตตาสอนให้แก้ปัญหาสังคมได้แต่ว่าแบบตามธรรมวินัยปีนเสาก็ไม่ต้องทำในสมัยพุทธกาลเขาก็ปีนเสาแต่ว่าเป็นอีกแบบหนึ่งเขาก็ตั้งปาดอยู่บนเสายอดเสาแล้วก็ชวนพระองค์ไหนมีฤทธิ์เหาะไปเก็บได้เขาจะเคารพองค์นั้นเก่งแต่พระพุทธเจ้าก็ไม่สรรเสริญบอกโอ้พระไปแสดงฤทธิ์ไม่ถูกนะสุดท้ายก็มีพระขึ้นไปเก็บแต่พุทธเจ้าไม่สรรเสริญบอกโอ้ไม่ดีบอกว่าเหมือนเป็นนักแสดงไม่ถูกเคยและพระกับการเมืองพระก็แสดงฤทธิ์ทุกอย่างพวกนี้ก็มีวินัยคุมอยู่ไม่ควรจะทำพยายามสอนญาติโยมด้วยเมตตาด้วยปัญญาแต่ไม่ต้องไปทำแบบนี้ There's a question about the monk's rules. So there's a case, there's a monk in a monastery, he's very ill, bedridden, and there's no one to look after him. So his daughter looks after him, cares for him, nurses him, which involves some touching, such as bathing and things. So saying, is that wrong? Is the monk breaking his rules? Well, strictly speaking, it's wrong, because monks should not touch or be touched by women. Obviously, if it's your father, if there's a daughter and there's a father, then the daughter will feel obliged to look after her father. But better to put the energy into finding a man to do that job. So really, it should be another monk. We have a rule: we should look after sick monks. Any monk in the monastery is sick, we should look after. I don't know the circumstances, so maybe this elderly sick monk is in a monastery with very few other monks, or maybe no other monks. I would say in that situation, you'd either try to invite other monks to come and live there to look after him, or you move him to another monastery where there are facilities and people to look after him. That would be the ideal. A woman looking after a monk, which involves close contact, nursing and so on, is not appropriate. Sometimes the monk has to disrobe because they're just not able to live as a monk. Sometimes you find a better situation for the monk so they can be looked after. The other question was about, there was a case of a monk protesting. เขาประท้วงเรื่องอะไรเงินจะปฏิรูปคณะสงฆ์วัดป่ามะขามนะครับเขารับดูแลพระจนตายที่อยู่ที่โคราช So we have a วัดป่ามะข มะขามดูแลพระแก่ให้โยมที่ถามเรื่องนี้ไปติดต่ออยู่ที่จังหวัดโคราชมีวัดในเมืองไทยที่จะดูแลพระที่ป่วยดูแลตามหลักวินัย The second question was about a monk who was protesting against the way the government was using funds. Like in Thailand, because it's a Buddhist country, there's a lot of monks. They have a religious affairs department of government that looks after the religion, the monks, the monasteries. And obviously they have funding, and then there's questions about how that funding is used, how it's managed, as you would expect. So this monk was making a protest about the way the funds were being managed and used. And his way of protesting was to climb a pole, stay up on this pole. You know, protesters do that. Down here we had someone protesting against the local council because the council wanted to cut a tree down. So they put their tent, they have a tent like you, but they put their tent up on the top of the tree. It's a gum tree in Warburton. For months they were up there to stop the council cutting it down. Eventually they got lots of big men to come at midnight, get the guy down, and they chopped all the branches at midnight when all the protesters had gone to sleep, which is just a good lesson. If you're protesting, you can't go to sleep. They'll get you, they're smart. Anyway, the question was about this monk, and so the general view is, well, monks shouldn't protest in that way. It's considered unmonk-like, inappropriate way to protest. You can give teachings to laity, to the government, to lay people about being fair, being honest, being compassionate to the population, how to do things well. There's a lot of teachings we can give. That's our primary job as monks, is to practice the Dhamma, the Vinaya ourselves, and then teach others. But not to get too involved in politics. We don't vote, we don't get involved in political parties, political protests. Since the time of the Buddha, that's been the standard. Nowadays there's a lot of pressure on monks and nuns to get political, and some people give in to that pressure, so they become political. But it actually is seen as a weakness and a cause for the Sangha as a whole to decline, for people to lose respect or faith in monks. Once they become political, then they're only going to serve part of the society, because there will always be different sides in politics. So a monk is political. Whoever has different politics won't like that monk, or won't see that monk in the correct way. So monks should stay out of politics, but we can still teach and advise the lay community, society, even governments, even ministers can be advised. The Prime Minister of Thailand once went to see Chah, gave advice. Lumpur Tui, who used to come here when he was younger, one year he was staying here and he went back from our monastery, and the head of the Thai army became a monk temporarily with him, and then was asked to become, he was only temporarily a monk. When he disrobed, he was asked to become Prime Minister of Thailand. And Lumpur Tui told him, don't get involved in politics. You just lose. It's too much. Too many difficulties, challenges. But he had no choice, so he became Prime Minister for 1 year. But at least he had ordained as a monk with a very good meditation teacher. So he used what he learned in the monastery to help him deal with the problems of running a country. So there are a few people who can manage to use the Dhamma in the way they deal with the problems of government running a country. But that's the job of lay people, it's not the job of the monks. The monk can advise and support and encourage, but they shouldn't get involved themselves, because it's not their job. Ajahn, we are very fortunate to learn the Dhamma from a learned teaching monk like yourself. Well, I'm still learning too. Can you please explain the Satipatthana Sutta, the 4 foundations of mindfulness? Oh, the whole lot. Ooh. Kaya anupassana, seeing body in body. Vedana anupassana, feelings in feeling. Dhamma anupassana, Dhamma in Dhamma. Citta anupassana, mind in mind. Thank you immensely for your kindness. Yeah, I'd have to be very kind to explain the whole sutta in one question and answer session. Really, I have actually been explaining it without calling it the Satipatthana Sutta. These themes are what we're practicing and studying, and monks will often talk about an aspect of Dhamma which is really coming back to the Satipatthana Sutta. It's just we don't specifically say this is the Satipatthana Sutta. Any teaching on mindfulness is going to be related to the Satipatthana Sutta. So I've been teaching quite a lot about anapanasati and then body contemplation, because that's how I've practiced. These are both particularly in kaya anupassana, coming to see the body in the body, or sometimes we tweak that and we say body as a body, rather than my body, your body, their body. Taking the self out of the body is what you're doing as you apply mindfulness directed to the body. So you have different practices like 32 parts, 4 elements, the breath, the asupa meditation, seeing the body as a corpse, all to bring up this detached awareness where you know the body as the body or the body in the body without grasping at it as seeing it as self. Now you're seeing your body as a body. And there's a separation between the mind that knows and the thing that is known, the body. So most teachers encourage you to begin with the kaya anupassana, with the body, because it's the most obvious thing to focus your mindfulness on. And obviously the Buddha did as well. Then you move on to vedana anupassana, knowing feeling as feeling rather than my feeling, my dukkha, my sukha, my neutral feeling. Because when you grasp at it with attachment, as I was saying earlier, then you start to suffer. So feelings cause you suffering. Even pleasant feelings cause suffering, don't they? Because you want them, and if you haven't got them, you're suffering. Or you've got them and you're worried you'll lose them, you're suffering. Just observe, you have a pleasant feeling, say like when you're meditating, pleasant feeling arises because you're peaceful. I want this pleasant feeling to last forever and ever, and then it's gone. Happens all the time in meditations. You get used to seeing feeling as feeling and accepting that it arises in certain causes and conditions. It will arise. Causes and conditions change, it will pass away. Cittanupassana, seeing the mind as the mind. And how do you see the mind? Well, you see it reflected in its objects or mental states. So, is the mental state wholesome? Is the mental state unwholesome? Is the mental state peaceful or not peaceful? Is it bright or dark? Is it expansive or very contracting? And then coming to see that these mental states are all impermanent. They arise, they cease, they change. What is impermanent is not self. So the mind and these mental states are not self. You think in one way and that will prompt another thought and another thought. So if you think in an unwholesome way and you don't do anything about it, you'll keep thinking in an unwholesome way, for example. But if you develop skillful thinking, wholesome kusala dhamma thinking, then you'll start to think more and more in that way, especially if you introduce mindfulness and wisdom. But in the end, we're practicing to see with mindfulness that the mind and the objects of mind are not self. And Dhammanupassana is seeing the whole lot, the way suffering arises and the way suffering is abandoned. The causes for suffering, the causes for the end of suffering, the Four Noble Truths. It all centers around Four Noble Truths. So that's just a summary. There's a lot more to say, and I will say a bit more maybe over the next day or two, but for now maybe I'll just say that much. Ajahn, please explain the difference between letting go of hindrances via samadhi and letting go of hindrances via insight. And how long can hindrances be suppressed by samadhi? Thank you for all your teachings. How long can hindrances be suppressed by samadhi depends on the depth of samadhi. So I was saying earlier about the different kinds of samadhi, kanika, upajjhara, appana. So probably the most refined, powerful samadhi that we normally talk about is fourth jhana, rupa jhana, fourth jhana. One who attains that is going to have very, very powerful, continuous mindfulness, and their mind will become very radiant and very suited to develop vipassana insight into everything. So it just depends on the depth of your samadhi. If you've got a little bit of samadhi, the hindrances are suppressed for a little bit of time and then they re-emerge. Deeper samadhi for a longer time. Can you let go of the hindrances through insight? Yes, you can. You can see a hindrance as impermanent. So, suddenly I can't think. Impermanence. You're angry about something, you're upset about something. Say you go to the kitchen to get your breakfast tomorrow and it's not what you wanted. Some irritation, annoyance arises. But you've been practicing satipatthana, so you're sort of already half mindful, and then now you're aware you're getting annoyed because you don't find the food you wanted. So this annoyance comes up. But now, because you've been practicing mindfulness over the last few days, your sila is good, you're more aware of yourself, you notice it. Oh, I'm getting annoyed because my favorite food is not there. Then you reflect with insight. Food is impermanent. You eat it and it's gone in a few moments. Breakfasts are impermanent. I've had so many breakfasts in my life, everyone has been different. The feeling of annoyance is impermanent. It rises, passes away. Once you've finished your breakfast, you've moved on. You're not feeling anything anymore about your breakfast. You've moved on. So that feeling, you can see, it arises, it ceases, it's impermanent. It's triggered by not getting what you want. You don't get the food you want. But when you realize there's no point getting angry about this, let that feeling and that thought go, you see it's impermanent and it's gone. You can use wisdom like this to let go of hindrances. Or you just go to your meditation object, down to breakfast, Buddha, 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 or breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Doesn't matter what hindrance is coming up, you just keep returning to the breath or returning to Buddha or Buddha. You don't give a space to the hindrance, so nothing can get you until you give up your object. And monks do this. I know monks who will walk out on alms round in the morning, reciting Buddha, and if halfway along the road, they walk up 1 or 2 kilometers, they walk halfway along and they let their mind start dwelling on something unwholesome, imagining something. It could be imagining what food they'll eat today, or irritated with something somebody said yesterday and they remembered it. When they lose their meditation object and they realize they've lost their meditation object, no longer reciting Buddha, they stop, turn around, go back and don't eat for the day. You can guarantee tomorrow they're not going to lose track of their meditation object because they don't want to go without food 2 days in a row. So 1 day is enough to teach you. Tomorrow I'm not going to lose track of Buddha. So they get beyond the hindrances very well because they learn to be very determined and we get very strong samadhi like that. That may not suit everyone else. So some people contemplate. So they're walking along the road and they start thinking about something that annoys them or some desire, and they use insight. Oh, this is impermanent. It rises, passes away, and that's enough for them. So there are both ways work. You can use some wisdom to let go of a hindrance, or you can just use strength of mindfulness if you're up to it. Just power through the hindrances by sticking with your meditation object, and that will work too. And sometimes it's a combination of the two, some wisdom and some samatha effort in your samatha practice together, bit of back and forth.ครับนมัสการหลวงพ่อถ้าเวลานั่งสมาธิอยู่ในโบสถ์นี้มีพระหรือสามเณรนั่งอยู่1 รูปแล้วมีผู้ปฏิบัติธรรมนั่งด้วยจะถือว่าเป็นอาบัติกับพระหรือสามเณรรูปนั้นไหมคงไม่เป็นไรโบสถ์ก็เป็นที่ส่วนรวมบางที่ดึกก็เหลือน้อยอาจจะมีพระรูปหนึ่งโยม1-2 คนก็ไม่เป็นไรดึกถ้าเป็นนักปฏิบัติตั้งใจปฏิบัติสมาธิอาจจะนั่งนานก็น่าอนุโมทนาไม่เป็นไรเป็นที่ส่วนรวมก็หลายองค์น้อยองค์ญาติโยมหลายคนน้อยคนไม่เป็นไรแต่ถ้าเป็นที่ลับปังเข้าไปในห้องหรืออยู่ในโรงครัวด้วยกันไม่มีใครก็คงไม่ควรพระกับโยมอยู่ด้วยกันนานในที่ลับที่บังก็ไม่ดีถ้าอยู่ในโบสถ์ก็ถ้าพระเคร่งครัดถ้าท่านลุกขึ้นรู้โอ้มีเหลือผู้หญิงคนเดียวกับเราคนหนึ่งองค์หนึ่งก็อาจจะออกไปข้างนอกก็ได้แต่ถ้าท่านไม่รู้ตัวนั่งสมาธิหลับตาท่านก็ไม่รู้ก็คงนั่งต่อ It's just a question about in the Abhajana hall here, say late at night, if there's only one monk or one lady sitting down, is it appropriate? Because it's a public place, then this may happen. If it's just for a shorter period of time, probably is okay because it's a public place and sometimes people are coming in and out. But if it was a private place where no one else is going to come in, one monk and one lady in one private place for a long time, especially at night, is not appropriate. So if it's a room or the kitchen or somewhere, it's not appropriate. But in the meditation hall, sometimes there's some movement of people late at night. Most people are resting, but there may be 1 or 2 monks or novices here, 1 or 2 lay people. Or just keep to your own place and meditate. But if the monk is uncertain about whether he's breaking his rules, well, he'll get up and he'll leave. So the layperson doesn't need to really worry too much. It's the monk who has to be responsible for his rule, keeping his rules. Novices, they don't break a rule, but they also have to look at what's appropriate. So if a novice is alone with a woman in a place where no other man is going to show up, that's probably not appropriate. But if it's a public hall where there's a bit of coming and going, well, it should be okay. Mm-hmm. ครูบาอาจารย์สอนให้ปฏิบัติธรรมเพื่อมรรคผลนิพพานไม่ต้องมาเกิดอีกแต่สำหรับโยมเป็นผู้หญิงบวชไม่ได้พิจารณาแล้วต้องมาเกิดใหม่อีกแน่นอนค่ะไม่แน่นอนคำถามคือโยมกล่าวอธิษฐานโยมควรอธิษฐานยังไงค่ะเวลาพระให้พรเราควรอธิษฐานอะไรบ้างเหมือน เข้าใกล้ใกล้มรรคผลนิพพานมากขึ้นเพื่อเข้าใกล้มรรคผลนิพพานมากขึ้นในชาติต่อไปอยากรู้เวลาหลวงพ่อทำบุญหลวงพ่ออธิษฐานอะไรยังไง ก็สำหรับเราก็อธิษฐานพระนิพพานให้บุญกุศลที่เราทำวันนี้เป็นเหตุปัจจัยให้เราบรรลุพระมรรคผลนิพพานพ้นทุกข์เหมือนโยมก็อธิษฐานได้ที่จริงความเป็นผู้ชายผู้หญิงเป็นพระเป็นโยมยังเป็นสมมุติอยู่นะมีสติปัฏฐานสอนมีกายมีใจให้เข้าถึงหลักธรรมลึกซึ้งมันก็จะเข้าถึงเกณฑ์ธรรมได้มรรคผลเกิดได้ชาตินี้เลยผู้หญิงบรรลุพระอรหันต์ได้แต่ต้องทำตามหลักศีลสมาธิปัญญาต้องทำจิตให้บริสุทธิ์รู้แจ้งในอริยสัจธรรมเห็นอริยสัจสี่ทุกข์สมุทัยนิโรธมรรคก็มีแนวปฏิบัติจะเป็นผู้ชายผู้หญิงนักบวชหรือคฤหัสถ์มันก็เหมือนกันเลยเมชีแก้วถือว่าเป็นเมชีศีลแปดแต่ที่จริงเขาไม่จับเงินเขาก็บรรลุเป็นพระอรหันต์ได้ก็เลยผู้หญิงทำได้แต่อยู่ที่ความเพียรพยายามถ้าเราบอกตัวเองว่าเราทำไม่ได้เป็นผู้หญิงก็ตัดกำลังใจทันทีเลยก็เลยไม่ต้องไปคิดอย่างนั้นบอกว่าเราจะทำให้ถึงที่สุดจริงอยู่ถ้าชาตินี้ยังไม่ได้ก็ชาติต่อไปเราก็ต้องทำต่อแต่ผู้หญิงบรรลุทำได้ดังแต่สมัยพุทธกาลสำคัญอยู่เราจะปฏิบัติตามหลักคำสอนพุทธเจ้าหรือไม่สำคัญตรงนี้เวลาทำบุญต้องอธิษฐานขอให้บุญที่เราทำวันนี้เป็นเหตุปัจจัยเพื่อมรรคผลนิพพานปัจจโยโหตุเราทำบุญเพื่อละความโลภโกรธหลงออกจากใจไม่ต้องไปคิดขอให้นี่ขอให้ได้อันนี้ขอให้ได้อันนั้นที่จริงถ้าจิตเข้าใจแล้วเราทำเพื่อมรรคผลนิพพานเพื่อละกิเลสทำบุญเพื่อละความขี้เหนียวเพื่อละอุปทานในสิ่งของในฐานะในเงินทองในไม่ได้ครอบครัวทุกอย่างที่เรายึดเราก็ต้องทำบุญเพื่อละความยึดความอุปทานก็พยายามไปนะอนุโมทนา Just a question about the difficulties of practicing as a woman, so I sympathize, but we have to get it right in our mind at least. Magga Palinibbana is beyond gender and it's beyond your status, whether you're a monk, nun, layman, laywoman. Magga Palinibbana arises from cultivating the Noble Eightfold Path and realizing and seeing through, penetrating me through the Four Noble Truths, whether you're a man or woman, whoever. But of course, whatever your situation is, your life situation, there'll be obstacles and difficulties in society, in your life, in your family, in your personal life. You may have all kinds of challenges, sure. But don't let that put you off. You still want to establish your mind, focusing on practicing for Nibbana. If you don't get it this life or next life or in 10 lives, doesn't matter, just keep going. Because what else is there to do? If you say, I can't do it, I'm a woman, or whatever other reason you may think up, you can't practice, won't attain Nibbana, what you're doing is condemning yourself to a lot more suffering. Doesn't make any sense. Practice for Nibbana, develop that sort of continuity of effort. However difficult it is, I'm still going to do it. Whatever the obstacles, I'll still do it. If you're a woman, well, learn what the obstacles are that you're facing and try and learn and get through them. You notice when you meditate, your mind goes in, your mindfulness improves, samadhi arises, you're contemplating impermanence, say. Man, woman disappears, doesn't it? It's just body, feelings, the mind, mental states, as we've been discussing with the Satipatthana Sutta. On the outside, superficially, man, woman, ordained, layperson, young, old, good-looking, bad-looking, all the things of the world, that's on the outside. But inside, that disappears very quickly when you meditate. It's just khandhas, isn't it? Body, namatam, rupatam, feelings, memories, thoughts. If you're a woman, you probably have a particular set of perceptions, thoughts, feelings. Men might have different ones, but they're still thoughts, feelings, perceptions. That's the important thing. Get right through to the Dhamma. And these things are all impermanent, not self. Don't take them as self, because then you suffer. Whether you think like a woman or you think like a man, feel like a woman, feel like a man, you're going to suffer if you grasp those feelings as self. That's the important thing. As a practitioner for Nibbana, probably your beginning point, you've got to establish hiriyottappa, sense of shame and understanding there is good and bad karma, wholesome and unwholesome mental states. You have to abandon the unwholesome, cultivate the wholesome. Whether you're a man or woman doesn't matter there. It's a matter of training your mindfulness, your insight, and develop the hiriyottappa so that you can look after your mind and start freeing it from the effects of greed, anger and delusion. You keep doing that. As you do it, mindfulness improves, sila improves, start letting go of things, letting go of some of your stinginess and your attachments and your greed and your jealousy and your anger. Things will improve, your mind becomes brighter, more refined. When you attain some samadhi, the sense of man-woman disappears anyway. It doesn't matter so much. When you contemplate the body as elements, or the 32 parts, or skeleton, see, if you're contemplating the skeleton, when did you ever last go and see a skeleton and say, man, woman? It's hard to tell, isn't it? I mean, experts can tell, but you see a skeleton hanging up somewhere, like in these forest monasteries, we have skeletons. You don't even know at first, is that a man, a woman? You might have to ask someone the story of the skeleton, but male skeleton, female, don't look that different. Maybe slightly bigger than man, generally, but not much difference. A bone is a bone. So you've got to get through to seeing the bones and see them as impersonal, not self. If you're still obsessed with the outside, I am a woman, I am a man, like this, like that, and then you're still just going around the edges of things. You have to go in deep and see the 5 khandhas are impermanent, not self. Well, I'm a failure. I've still not answered all the questions, so we'll try again tomorrow night.